Hello, everyone, and welcome to Member 365 webinar on membership management strategies and best practices. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christine Bundy. I am the Director of Customer Success here at Member 365. Today's session is being recorded. Everyone has been muted and cameras have been turned off. So fun fact is I love questions. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please put them into the Q&A. And if I see them as we go, I may answer them, but we do have Q&A at the end. For today's session, now we are going to go over just like basics. What are kind of the basics for creating an event and into advanced settings. We are also going to focus on workshops today, as there was just a new release 2 weeks ago. So how to like kind of do the imports for attendance or the imports for registration and how those different in the reporting side of things for today. And then we'll also go through some best practices and questions. So let's get started and dive into Member 365. So from the admin dashboard, what we're going to do today is we're actually going to create it as a duplicate. So let's say, like, for example, last year's AGM, and we need to make 2025's AGM. So we're going to go into our events. Now, if you don't see events, it's because you do not have admin permissions. Make sure you talk to an admin manager to grant you permissions if you need it. We're going to come up into manage, and I'm actually just going to duplicate my last year's AGM for this year's, and then we can go in and make the modifications that we need to. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit duplicate. And this is going to be for 2025 annual general meeting and confirm. So it's already going to update the name for me, but I have to go in here and I have to then update other things that need to be updated. So it's just kind of going through selecting the category that you want it to be. If you haven't done that already, you can create categories by going into events, going into settings, and then you can go to event categories. Here, quickly, you can edit or add categories, add color coding, and those appear in your calendar, in the member portal, and on your website. Then you're going to add your description or update it. It might be exactly the same as last year with slight modifications. You can always add videos, images within the description if you like. Some people even put charts if they have pricing charts in there. That's always really good. Then you're going to come down and do your logo and your banner. Now, this one is a general banner. If you have one that you want for 2025, just make sure you check the specifications if you're creating a new one. Then you're going to go down and get your background, and I'm going to hit save as a draft. Now, you want to hit save as a draft until you know what your audience is going to be when you get to the registration tab. So the next tab we're going to look at is the date. And so the date we're going to change to being for 2025. And so for this specific one, we have specific dates. Now, you may have it over just as one day, or you may have it over the course of a couple of days. That's completely up to you if you want to use specific date or close and end date, because close and end date is over a long duration. So if it's like a week-long conference that you're doing, you're going to want to use start and end date. If you're doing webinars, you're going to want to use specific date, because then it's a specific time that you're going to be doing it. Or if it's just a one-day event, you can do it as well as the specific date and the times that they're going to be there. Once you've selected that, you're then going to enter your location and hit save. Now, if you're doing this as a webinar and not for conferences, if you're just doing a basic one, in the address 1 is where I normally put the webinar, and then via Zoom or via GoToMeetings or via whatever you're using for your webinar, that's what you would put in here. So it appears on the landing page. So if you're sending a landing page out through emails or through social media, they know what type of conference it is. I know you could also do that in your categories, but it's just reinforcing it. We're going to save and then go to the registration tab. In here, there are 3 options for registration. There's no registration. So if you're just doing like a save the date, nobody needs to register. You can just show up as you want. You don't need to. Yes is if they have to register by a certain date and time. Now we're going to change this, that we're going to open this up to begin in October. And they have until January, and then it will close. Now, if I wasn't doing this registration and I was just doing third party, one thing you do have to take into consideration is these should be turned off and your URL would go in here. If you're doing online registration, I do want to allow non-members to come if it's an option. And for allowing no login. So they don't have to log in order to register. They can just put their email in, and based on their email is what tickets they can get. Now, for an AGM, we're not going to want non-members being able to come because it's an AGM and it's for members only. But for conferences, you would maybe want to have that option available. You can set early bird dates. So we have two early bird dates before the regular fee comes, and then a late registration. So there's 3 types of times for different payment options within it. It's up to you if you want to use them. We have withdrawal dates. So if you do not allow refunds, what you're going to do is you're going to want to do this. So you make the withdrawal date the same date as your open registration date, so that no one can withdraw unless they contact an administrator, and then you can do it in the back end. You can just remove the registration and they then not have, they don't get the refund automatically. Or you can set a penalty if you want as well. So the date that penalties start if they do withdraw. So maybe like a week up to the conference, you have a penalty date because they're registering late. Dates for modifying. So if they're allowed to go in and make modifications to the tickets, not withdrawing, but maybe assigning it to someone else or updating workshops or things along those lines. You can also set up a confirmation email. So if you're doing webinars, you are definitely going to want to have the webinar information for the person who's registering. So they will get this as well as the person they've assigned the ticket to. So make sure that you have a subject line. If it doesn't have a subject line, it will not send. And then any information that you need within the confirmation email. We then can select a certificate, and then you can make it so that when they are marked as attending, they can get the certificate emailed to them. There's a default email template you can adjust as you need, but the link here needs to be in it so that they get the certificate link for this event. You can adjust all other wording, but that one needs to stay there. And then I always recommend having it show up in the portal. So even if it's for an event that you allow non-members to come to, I always recommend enabling the non-members to get access. It's a great way for converting prospects. So you can have your non-members come in and be like, hey, there's this cool portal. What's this about? And even in there, you can have a non-member welcome message with all the benefits of becoming a member. They can do modifications to their events. They can update their information. They can get their receipts and their certificates at any time. If they become a member, their access change, and they then just see the portal as a member instead. One thing that I don't recommend is marking everyone by default, especially if you have continuing education credits. You want to make sure that the right people are getting marked as attended. If you mark them automatically as attended and the date closes, they're automatically getting those CE credits, and they're automatically getting certificates that they didn't earn. So something to take into consideration. I know that some people, it's just if they sign up, they get it, no problem. Again, it's up to your policies. Now, if I'm testing an event and I don't want the general members to see it, I'm going to switch this to a specific workshop, and then I'm going to select a workshop that is for my staff team. So I have one here for event testing. You might have one that's just for your staff, which is why we also recommend you have a staff membership so that you can do testings like this. So if I do this and I can publish it, it's now hidden in behind and nobody can see it. And so I can do all these testings, and when I'm ready for the general members or everyone else to register, I just have to come back and switch it over to the general event and put it in the calendar and turn on non-members if I'm allowing non-members to attend. Next is being able to do admission alerts. So this is if somebody joins, registers, or withdraws from the event, you can get a notification in your inbox. And then you have your registration page. Now, the difference between the French and English registration page is simply this last number. So if I click on French, it has a 2. If I click on English, it has a 1. So it's, if you're trying to figure out what's the difference, that's the only difference. It's the end number will determine if it's a French page or an English page for all the Canadians that are using it, or internationals that are using it as well. So I'm going to copy that for later. And I've already published, so we're going to go up and look at tickets. So even for basic webinars, you need at least one ticket, even if you're using a third-party registration, so you can do your import after. So you're definitely going to want to come in here and create at least a couple of, or one ticket, depending on your, if you're doing half session credits or full session credits. So for example, if somebody is registering for this ticket and I say that they get one credit for attending, it's going to go into my level that I'm assigning. And when I get marked as attending, I automatically get it for that ticket. So if they have a webinar session and they've only showed for half the time and you want to give them those credits, you'd have to create multiple tickets for them. When creating a ticket, you want to make sure it's very clearly labeled. And then you want to enable any of the additional features, so the advanced features that you would want with it. So for conferences, if you have new meal plans, notes is for dietary things that they would like to notify. Workshops are straightforward. They're the sessions for breaking up within a conference, so you know exactly who's going where, especially if you have CE attached to those. And then add-ons. So add-ons are anything along the lines of swag, additional options that they can purchase, but they don't have to purchase while they're registering for the event. You can force them to at least select one workshop. So if you are doing workshops, I always recommend turning this on so they know they have to go through that process. And then we have your CE, which we've discussed, and then you have a form. So you can create forms to connect to your tickets. So each individual ticket has to be submitted with those answers. So if you click this, each purchase ticket has to have those answers. Now, if you only have questions for the purchaser and they only have to answer it once, you wouldn't put it here. You would actually put it on the form set tab, and then it's just one time they have to answer all the questions. If you have limited space, you can limit the total number of tickets. I always recommend either limit it to purchaser or forced ticket assignment so that you know exactly who is coming to the event. And when you're sending out your email marketings, maybe before or after, you have that information, as well as from name badges. So when people come up, you know exactly who is for that ticket and there's no confusion. You can also limit ticket to purchasers if you like as well. And then you can determine who can pay for each of these tickets. So, or the pricing. So do you want to allow non-lapsed members or archive members to get member pricing, or anyone who's impending to get member pricing? So if you have a really long approval process, you might want to give them the benefit. It was like, well, I did pay, but I'm waiting to get approved. So, but I still want to go to the conference. You might want to allow them to do that. And then do you allow non-members? Prerequisites are for if you want them to purchase one ticket before they're allowed to purchase another. So for example, you could have a full conference ticket and then have a pre-cocktail party or a breakfast or something along those lines, or golfing. That's another one that's common, but they can't do any of those things unless they pay for the conference first. So they have to be attending the conference to get the benefit of going to the other events that are related. So that's when you would use prerequisites, so that they'd have to do the first ticket before they can do any of the other options. Also, boat cruise is also an option. Then we have the fees. So the fees are for allowing you to do a flat fee. So if everyone pays the same price, it's a flat fee. If there are different prices for different memberships as a benefit of paying a larger sum for your membership, you can then set the pricing based off of the membership category that they're in, and for the late, early bird, and regular fees. You can also have it so that it applies to all and everyone pays the same fee. And then in here, if you want to limit who can or who can't, or if you want to, you can come in and just select all membership categories that you'd like. Once you're done, hit add and create as many tickets as needed. It's very simple. Just hit the add button and then do your settings. It is important to make sure, again, you label these correctly so they know which ticket. And if you don't want a member or a non-member to pay, sorry, a member to pay for a non-member, then you want to limit it to purchaser. So if a member pays for a ticket or any ticket and they assign it to a non-member, they're still paying the member pricing because they're the one purchasing it. So if there's cases where non-members have to pay a specific price, you want 2 separate tickets, and then have members limit it to purchaser, and then the non-members, they can assign it, but it's all the same price for the non-member ticket, whether they're a member or a non-member. Just something to think about as you're setting this up. Finally, you can also add instructions, and these will appear when they're assigning the tickets to individuals or anything along those lines. Then you set your taxes, your payment options, and your ledgers. So some associations do like to have specific ledgers for each event, and some don't. It's up to you. So those are the basics. That's the basics. Now let's go a little bit into the advanced. Into the advanced, when you have meal plans, you can add and create them. Very easy. You can allow non-members to purchase them. There can be a fee associated with it or not. And then you also have your workshops. So there are just a few templated ones in here. Now, when you create your workshops, you have to have a name, a description, number of seats that are available. If you want to allow credits, you now can. So you can get an hour, 1 credit, or 1 hour credit, depending on how you have it labeled within your system. It can be assigned automatically to a level if you have categories, also to a category. Allowing non-members to earn those, and then which membership categories are eligible to select this workshop, so that when they go to purchase the tickets, they can also purchase the workshop. You also have contact demographics as well as an option. You want to put in the start date and the end date. So we're going to change this. Boop. Let's just go. It was on the 1st. There we go. The date, start times, the fee, if there is a fee, and then you can sign certificates. And this is the same settings that you saw on the registration page. So you can have it automatically get sent an email with the certificate if they're marked attending for the workshop. So before we had it where you can only mark them as attending for the entire event, But now you can mark them for each workshop as attending, and they can get their own certificate and credits. If the event is over and they are marked as attending, they automatically get the credits and automatically get the certificate sent to them. You can adjust the language for the certificate down below here, just like the other. Once it's all done, you hit add. You can move these up or down to put them in a specific order if you like. And you also can make it so that they can only sign up, they can sign up for more than one in the same time slot if you want. I typically don't like to do that, so I always have it off. All right, next we have is add-ons. Now for add-ons, they're very simple to do. It's just a name, description, fee, and the category in which those fit in. For group categories, it's also under settings. So you can also make that add-on groups updates in there if need be. For promo codes, always be aware that a promo code is within each event. They are not able to cross over to another event unless you're using the same promo code on both, and then it can apply. If you're doing it by percentage, it's the percentage of the entire bill, not just the one ticket. So if you're only going to allow them to get a coupon or one free ticket, don't do 100%. Put the price of the ticket that they're eligible to get to give them that promo code. You can limit them. So if you're doing like a special that's above and beyond the early bird rates, you can. If you have speakers or vendors that you are just going to give 100% to, absolutely, that's what you want to do. Again, you can select a ledger so you specifically know who used the promo codes, and a start and end date so it's not overused a certain time of date if you like for your promotion. Next is adding disclaimers. Now, I'm not a lawyer. However, one thing that I always like to add is if you are going to take photos for social media purposes or promotional purposes, you may want to add that in. Just advice, but again, I'm not a lawyer, so consult one. If you are adding disclaimers, make sure that you add, I agree to the following, the content for that disclaimer, and I always make it mandatory so that they have to agree in order to come to the event. Then you can set up your reminders. Now, these are exactly the same as renewal reminders. So it's so many days before or after the end date of the event. And so you can set these up to go out. So if they have hotels or other things like that that they need to be aware of, you definitely can add them in. And then also, if afterwards you want to send out a survey, you can also do that as well. For people that are just doing Zoom webinars, this is where you can set them different reminders. So if you put it to 0 days, it'll go out that day of the session that is then going to go to them. So it's right in their inbox with the information they need for their webinar. And then finally, I said forms. So this is if you only want them to fill out the form once and not per ticket, if they have certain questions that are not on a per ticket basis. Then finally, we have the settings for when a brand new person comes in, what information do you need to collect? You can make them mandatory or not mandatory. So name of organization, job title, the information that you need. And I do always recommend anyone new going in the system, you should use the drop down for organizations, because you can spell an organization 10 different ways depending on who you ask, with acronyms and no acronyms. And then finally, we have a new setting for continuing education certificates. So do lapsed members get the CE credits? Yes or no? Do attendees get education credits and certificates when their invoice is unpaid? Yes or no? So there is 2 options also there to take into consideration for if you are running a CE program. All right, so we are going to grab the registration link and actually register for the event. Oh, and my registration. Oh, been they didn't change the dates, that's why 2025. 2024 to, oh, it's closed. Let's switch that to 2025. There we go. So these are the tickets that I'm allowed to purchase based off of my member settings. Now, I was logged in to the system, which is why it didn't ask me to enter my email address. If they're already logged in, it's going to automatically go here. If I wasn't, I put in my email and then it would give me the tickets I was allowed to purchase. From here, I would select the ticket I want. I then can assign it. You do have a lookup option that is available. It's in the, again, in the settings. So if you have them in your system, they can look them up before adding them. I select my workshops and then hit continue. I then pay. I'm going to say by check. And there we go. So now I'm registered for the event. So now let's go into reports. And I can go to my 2025. And there's my registration. I can in here see all the other reports for the event. If you ever need a full roster, you're going to export this and it's going to give you everyone that has registered and with the ticket, the person that is assigned the ticket and the person that registered for the ticket. Now we have other reports in here, but today the two that I'm really going to focus on is the attendance. So there is the attendance and the registration import. So both of these have a template. They are identical. It's just a basic template where you're going to use email address or member number to import them into. Please be careful when you are importing using this form, because if they're in here and then you import them, they can't be removed. There's no removing them from the event. They will be in that event and you cannot remove them from the event. You're simply going to select the file once you have the emails or member numbers in there, and then you're going to select the tickets and or workshops they have registered for. They will then appear over here on your registration tab, but they will not be marked as attending. They would just be marked as registered. If you want to do an import for attendance, you need to come to this import. Same template, same exact process as before, except for now you're automatically marking them as attending. And the second they're marked as attending and the event is closed, they're automatically assigned these credits and they're automatically sent and released the certificate. So it's all together. So there's the import for registration and then there's the import for attendance. They're two separate things now. They used to be the same, but now they're not. So again, just something to be aware of. And finally, if you need to do name badges, so we do have options for name badges. Again, under settings, there is different templates that you can go into and select templates. You do have to play around if you select a certain template with your printer for printing. I know that I spent about 20 minutes one day doing it on my printer for Ivory, and then I went over again to my parents and borrowed their printer, and I had to do completely different settings. So every printer is different. I tested it out on multiple printers that I had access to. So just be aware of that different settings for different printers and also which package or type of name badges that you're printing onto. So just take those into considerations. Okay. Let's do some best practices and some questions. I see there's a couple questions and I will get to those in just a minute. Okay. Number one is create a banner. And the important thing for this is A, you saw it on the landing page. It's pretty. It's also in the member portal. So the most the next event that's coming up is right there. So having it there so they can click on it makes it pretty, and adds just a little bit of it changes. So it's just something that's changing every time they go in. Allow no login registration. So people aren't having to log in, because if people forget their passwords, they then have to reset their passwords, and then they have to get the email, and then they've all forgotten about actually registering for the thing you want them to do. Now, I understand some associations, they have to, because they're only for members and you don't want non-members going in. But again, that's why you have the tickets. So it's completely up to you, but I always recommend not. It just reduces friction. So making sure that when you're assigning a specific workshops when testing, so when you are doing the test like we just did, go in and assign yourself to the entire process. So actually select the workshops that are there that have been enabled. Same with meal plans, so that you can do a couple tests. When you're done testing, you can just unregister yourself. So if you go to the first page and just remove the registration, so that that seat is now available if you need to. Next is a force either ticket assignment or limit to purchaser. Really important. This is something that's commonly forgot, and I get a lot of support. Well, we get a lot of support tickets about how do I force them? Why don't I have any names on here? So, well, it wasn't forced, so they're just not going to fill it out. So it's just something to make sure that you do. Create a ledger if you like to know exactly how much your revenues are per event, if you're hosting similar events or different streams of events. You don't have to, but again, great option. Make organization drop down an option for new people coming into your system, so they're not creating new organization records. And then finally is create a template. So a lot of associations create templates so that they can just select that template every time. I, on the other hand, do what I just did, is I take the last one and then I modify it. Either option works, whatever you're most comfortable with. All right, my favorite time, questions. All right, so first question. If you create a prerequisite ticket, will they have to go through the process of paying twice, or will they be able to buy them in one time? It's a great question. So no, the second you select the ticket that they're supposed to purchase first, the other tickets you can select at the same time and then go through the process. So so long as the ticket is within that purchase, you're fine. Or they can purchase it and then they can go back. Either one works. Do you plan to create a way that could register someone to the events through the back end without having to impersonate them, such as through an invoice? It would be extremely helpful. Great idea. I think I've heard this a couple times before. It isn't on our suggestion board. Nothing at the moment, because impersonating them is one of our great ways of it's just going through the process on their behalf and then ensuring that it's the right person. One thing to always double check, and this happened a lot this week or last week actually, is don't have multiple windows open when you are purchasing or impersonating someone, because then your admin account overrides their account and they kind of get jobbled. So just make sure you're not doing that. It's a common mistake. I do it too. It's a common mistake. We all think we have multiple tabs open. Close your tabs. Only have one when you're impersonating. Oh, great webinar. Thank you. I'm going to host a webinar for our members, but not an expert in the space. Any advice on this, or can do with member 365? I'm new. So if you're hosting a webinar with your members for the space, like if you want to do like a member portal video, reach out to me. If you want, submit a ticket, let's talk. I can definitely give you some help with that. I'm more than happy to. So sorry, that was anonymous, so I don't know who it was, but please reach out. You can submit a ticket and I'd be more than happy to give you some pointers, especially because I would like to look at your portal and what you guys and the specific settings for you to, that's the best way for me to give you the best advice. You are very welcome. Hey, Jess. Hi, Jess. Here we go. Next one is, I want to ask each registrant if they have information to share and just want to listen. Where can I ask that question? So if you want to know what each member that is, okay, so each registrant, if they have information, so you could create a form with a memo field in it that just has like an open text, and then they can put whatever, like if it's just a general opening for registrants, if it's for each ticket holder, you want to put it in the ticket. If it's just for the registrant and it's like one time ask, you put it in the events. Here, I'll just show you. Way easier. Under manage, you're going to go and put it in the form question here. So you could have a form question with just a memo field that's just any information, and then they can they can add to that, and you can have it in your reports as well. I hope that's helpful. All right, any other questions? All right. I'm sorry, we did go over a little bit of time today, although there were some really great questions. So thank you for sharing those with us. Very much appreciated. If you have other questions, I love questions. Please put them in as a support ticket. They are the best way to get a hold of us for quick response and tracking purposes, especially if anything has to get escalated. If you have premium support, don't hesitate to reach out to us on chat or Zoom calls. But we also have videos like this and a great knowledge base if you need help with that as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was really great having you, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.